broadcasting live 4 days a week worldwide
from the sunny beaches of Southern California.
This is ExtremeHealthRadio.com.
Hi, this is Bruce Lipton. I'm on Extreme Health Radio with Justin and Kay, and I just want to say that I so appreciate this opportunity because we have a wonderful show ahead of us.
So, Kate, I am definitely not going to make the same mistake that I made on our last interview. Do you remember what that was?
I don't remember.
We hadn't done an interview in so long because we normally do them 4 times a week.
Right.
And we hadn't done one in so long, I accidentally didn't press the record button.
Oh, that's right. For the first, 3 or
4 minutes? Yeah, I was able to splice it together, but fortunately I saved it. But so now we're recording and we're good to go.
Okay. At least it wasn't like the time that you muted me halfway through the last
Sometimes
show.
I do that in real life.
I know. You just hit the mute button.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're really excited about today's show. We have Dr. Joe Dispenza on, and if you've been living under a rock, maybe you don't know who he is. But Dr. Joe Dispenza is an amazing guy. We'll introduce him in just a minute, and we're really excited to have him on. And let's see, for reference, this is episode number 341, and this is Extreme Health Radio. We broadcast live 2 days a week on Monday and Friday. This is a special week with Dr. Dispenza today on Thursday. So if you go to extremehealthradio.com/live, you can listen to the live shows. Typically happen at 9 a.m. Pacific time on Monday and Friday. So you can join the chat room and ask your questions and listen live and make some friends in the chat room. Have a little party.
Little party.
Little fiesta. Little fiesta. So for reference, today is Thursday, November 13th. 2014. And if you guys would like to support the show, and if you do any shopping on Amazon, we would greatly appreciate it if you go through our link, which is extremehealthradio.com/Amazon for all your Christmas shopping, your holiday shopping, birthday shopping, Kwanzaa shopping.
Love it.
Anything else,
Groundhog Day shopping.
Groundhog Day shopping.
What have you.
We would greatly appreciate that. So thank you so much for all of you that do that on a regular basis. We appreciate that. And today we have Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I originally was made familiar with his work from Dr. Richard Massey, our good friend in Texas, and he mentioned his book back a long time ago, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, but he's also the author of his newest book, which is You Are the Placebo, Making Your Mind Matter. And he's an expert on change. He's an expert on how the brain functions and the wiring of the brain and why we do the things that we do and why we get stuck in these patterns. And he understands human potential in the mind. He's a neuroscientist, chiropractor, lecturer, and he's also the author of another book called Evolve Your Brain, The Science of Changing Your Mind. And he was in that really great movie a while back called What the Bleep Do We Know?
Love that movie.
So that was a great movie, wasn't it?
That was a great movie.
So thank you so much, Dr. Dispenza, for being on the show. We really appreciate your time today.
I'm very happy to be with you guys.
So I wanted to ask you, so your newest book, You Are the Placebo, that came out, when did that come out? Was that recently?
It came out at the end of April of this year.
End of April, okay. And so there's a lot of people talking about the placebo, and it's just so interesting when I look at people talking or listen to people talking about the placebo, they mention it sort of like haphazardly, and they don't think, no one really looks into it, and I don't understand why. It's kind of strange. A little odd.
Well, I spent quite a bit of time researching it, and, you know, the concept of the placebo is fascinating because you cannot do a study in research right now, whether you're testing a drug or some type of new medication or some type of treatment without bringing in the placebo because the power of the mind is that strong. And the idea that you can give someone a sugar pill, a saline injection, or perform some false surgery or treatment, and a certain percentage of those people will accept, believe, and surrender to the thought or the idea that they're getting the real substance or the real treatment, and they'll begin to program their autonomic nervous system to make the exact pharmacy of chemicals that matches the drug or the treatment that they think they're getting. In other words, the equality and the ability for us to innately heal is within us. And if you look at, as an example, a study for depression using antidepressants, 3 out of 4 of those people that get a placebo will respond as well as the person getting the real drug. So 75% of the people are making their own natural antidepressants in their brain, which begins to change their biology. And so I thought, well, if I understood the science and the research behind how the placebo works, can you actually teach it? And instead of believing in some known substance like a pill or an injection, can we begin to select the possibility, a new potential, an unknown in the quantum field, and consistently revisit that unknown until we make it known and produce the same effects, but instead of relying on something outside of us, we rely with those innate capacities within us? And the answer to the question is absolutely yes.
That's fascinating. So when people are taking a placebo effect, sometimes it even works. I mean, you've talked about this, where people actually know they're taking a placebo and it still works. But if people are taking a placebo effect and you're saying that they are producing some of the same chemicals in their body that will allow them to heal, are they producing the same amount that would allow them to heal that a traditional drug would, or are they producing a lesser amount and somehow the body's still able to use that?
The answer is yes and yes. In certain cases, for example, if you look at one great study where the scientists were testing the effects of a placebo on Parkinson's patients. Now, Parkinson's patients have a deficiency in dopamine, and dopamine actually stimulates the pleasure centers of the brain. But in the absence of dopamine, the upper motor neurons in the brain begin to misfire, and the person has involuntary tremors. In other words, they have pill rolling or problems walking or problems reaching for things, intention tremors. And try as they may with their conscious mind to control it, for the most part, their body is doing what it does. So they took a group of people and they gave them a saline injection, but told them that it was a really powerful new treatment for Parkinson's patients. And the end result was that half of the patients had a significant change in their tremors. In other words, most of their tremors went away. And so when they measured the amount of dopamine that was being produced in the brain, these subjects were producing 200 times the amount of dopamine in their brain. Now that exceeds the normal limit, but there are varying degrees depending on the person's suggestibility, depending on the person's ability to think by thought alone that they're getting the real treatment. So we could say that the range is very, very, it's a spectrum. It's vast.
That's interesting. So
I'm curious when this study first came on the scene. I'm sure you probably cover it in your book, which I have yet to read and I'm super excited about. But who first kind of studied the placebo and found that it was even a valid study? I guess.
If you think about it, the placebo has been used for thousands of years. Whether you're reading biblical studies or you're reading ancient scriptures, or you're even studying folklore and some of the even traditional, non-traditional healing that took place in Europe back in the 1300s and 1400s. But in the United States, there was a surgeon, a military surgeon named Beecher. And on the battlefield, he realized that he ran out of the morphine-type substances that he used when he performed certain surgeries and performed certain treatments to injured soldiers. And so, in desperation, he realized that he was out of the morphine. So he just put salt and water and told the soldiers that it was a very powerful analgesic. And he was amazed at the results that he got. And every time he ran out of morphine, he would use the placebo. And he began to study the effects of the mind-body connection. And because of Beecher, that's what created what's called double-blind studies and triple-blind studies, where the doctors and the patients don't even know who's getting what, because it's an important element in seeing how much the mind produces a similar result as the drug.
So fascinating. Kate and I were watching something on Gaiam, and you have quite a few shows with Lisa Garr there on Gaiam, and but we were watching one recently about John of God. You remember that, Kate?
Oh, yeah.
The healer
How
down.
can you not forget?
I know. The healer down in Brazil, for those that don't know, and he's doing surgeries just like you're talking about. I'm not sure if they call them psychic surgeries but he's operating on people's eyes and everything.
Getting them open right before.
With no anesthesia. It's quite amazing.
Well, yeah, when you start talking about setting up the environmental conditions, I mean, there's certain things where someone like John of God, who's using a certain skill set that's outside of convention, when you're bringing in energy and when you're bringing in frequency or you're bringing in high levels of intention or what we would call the spiritual realm, it's going to challenge conventional beliefs. But yet, anything that you consider miraculous, a miracle, is something that happens outside of convention, whether it's social convention, scientific convention, religious convention, something that happens outside of our current beliefs. And so there are certain environmental cues, though, that enhance a person's suggestibility. For example, the enthusiasm or the mystique of the administrator that's performing, whether he or she is a trained health practitioner or a spiritual healer, there's certain elements or triggers or symbols, that we could call them symbols, that begin to create an association for the person that sets up the conditions internally for them to get the best results possible. So in other words, the external cues in the environment tend to produce substantial internal biological and chemical and physiological changes within them. So when you combine the skill set, a great skill set, along with the right environmental conditions, and you have a really good past history of producing some really amazing changes, those are all the right ingredients to continue to create a massive change in healing. And people who arrive there are in a certain level of expectation. And one of the three ingredients that allows the placebo to work so well is the idea of expectation. If you give someone a pill and you tell them it's going to heal them of their condition, that pill is a symbol or an association that represents some new future reality, some new potential. And that potential exists in the quantum field. Now, if that person begins to become inspired or enthusiastic, or they start to feel gratitude, they feel an elevated emotion. When you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion, you move into a new state of being. Thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body, and how you think and how you feel creates a state of being. So, as you begin to expect the outcome, your body, as the unconscious mind, begins to prepare itself for the event ahead of the actual event. In other words, in anticipation of the event occurring, your brain and body make the exact chemicals so that your body already begins to believe it's in the experience. Now, expectation is a very strong element, because the more a person expects an outcome, and they really are genuine in the process, and they're traveling all the way from Australia, or they're traveling all the way from Singapore, or traveling all the way from South Africa to Brazil, and then taking another plane and taking another plane. All of those elements in expectation for the event to produce a result adds as an ingredient for us to begin to accept the effects of a healing. Now, the antithesis of that also works too. In other words, cancer patients that are told before their first chemotherapy treatment that they're going to get nauseous after their first chemotherapy treatment, a high percentage, over 30% of those patients will get nauseous on their drive over to their first chemotherapy treatment in anticipation of the effects that are created
just
by thought alone.
That is amazing. That is just amazing. It's interesting, too, because you talked about the placebo and the nocebo, but we were just introduced to this story a couple weeks ago with that Brittany Maynard, I think, and she was diagnosed with, I think, some kind of brain tumor.
Terminal brain tumor.
29 years old, up in Oregon. And I watched the video with her, and it was really interesting because the doctors had given her 6 months to live, which I find to be very just strange how they can do that. But they gave her 6 months to live, and then she said in her video that she feels herself getting weaker and weaker and sicker every day. And I just thought, wow, that's such an incredible, and I thought, wow, that's a timely thing to be having Dr. Dispenza on right around after that. But I'm sure you were following that story too as well, right?
Well, it's a fine line, when we talk about this, because which I stay away from in the book, but there's an ethical dilemma. maybe the modern day witch doctor wears a lab coat and a stethoscope, and when you give someone a death sentence of how long they're going to live, it's like a voodoo curse. And so we only accept, believe, and surrender without any analysis to thoughts that are equal to our emotional state. And that's how we begin to program our autonomic nervous system. So you give someone a diagnosis of cancer, and cancer brings up a whole host of internal representations and pictures in their mind, but it also produces the emotion of fear. And so when they feel fear, they will only accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to that emotional state, and they'll program their autonomic nervous system. So change a person's emotional state, and we've done this enough times in our research, to a state of gratitude or a state of joy or a state of enthusiasm, and they'll accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to that emotional state and begin to program their autonomic nervous system into a different destiny. Now, I start off the book talking about a man who was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, and he went through all the tests and procedures, and then they found that the cancer had spread to his liver. The doctor gave him just a few months to live and told him there was nothing that he could do. And so he said, look, the only thing I want to do is I want to live past Christmas so that I can have my last holiday season with my family. Long story short, a week after Christmas, New Year's Day, the man dies. When they did the autopsy on him, they found out that they had a false positive test for liver cancer, and he didn't have any liver cancer, at least not enough to kill him. And the idea was that he died by thought alone.
Unbelievable. When did that story take place? When was that?
I think that was in the 40s. No, it was in the 50s, I'm sorry.
Isn't that wild?
Oh, my goodness.
That is unbelievable. So this guy, how long did he go believing he had cancer then? How long the time was that?
I think it was about a 4-month period of time, yeah.
4-month period of time. And so when you're talking about changing your emotional state, and I'm just thinking as you're talking that it really is more about emotions than it is about affirmations, because you have to tie those thoughts and beliefs and affirmative statements that you're saying to yourself, you have to tie those to your emotional state. Otherwise, what are they, just empty words, or do they work at all even if you don't tie them?
Well, this is why, there's this idea, well, first of all, we know this to be the truth because we've measured over 1,000 brains now during the meditative process, and we know without a doubt that your suggestibility, which is your ability to accept, believe, and surrender to a thought without any analysis, is, as your suggestibility goes up, your analytical facilities go down. As your analytical facilities go down, your suggestibility tends to go up. And so a person who has a good amount of suggestibility, they have very little analytical mind. A person who has a big analytical mind isn't very responsive to certain thoughts, because what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. So in the case of affirmations, if a person then is saying, I am wealthy, I am abundant, I am healthy, I am whole, but they feel like they're poor because their bank account has no money in it, or they've been programming themselves for the last 20 years to believe that they're in lack, then if thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, and how you think and how you feel creates a state of being, then those affirmations will bounce off because the person's mind is doing one thing and their body is doing something else. So when you change a person's emotional state now, and they begin to feel abundant, and they bring up that emotion, and they really, really emotionally embrace it, they're teaching their body emotionally what their future could feel like. And the body, as the unconscious mind, does not know the difference between an actual experience that creates an emotion and an emotion that you begin to create by thought alone. So once the person's emotional state changes, now they begin to accept those thoughts equal to their emotional state, and that's moving into a new state of being.
Wow, that's really interesting. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now, but when we come back, I'm really interested in pursuing this a little bit further, because
how do we go about changing our emotional state is what everyone will want to know.
Everyone wants to know that, yeah. And this is the subject matter of his entire book. So I would recommend getting The Placebo Effect to everybody and learning more about this. But I'm also thinking about...
You are the placebo.
That's right. You are the placebo. And I'm also thinking about when people do things like fire walking and things, they're getting ramped up into an emotional state before they step out onto those coals. And so there has to be this kind of emotional factor there. So if you guys are interested, go over to Dr. Dispenza's website. It's drdjoedispenza.com, and you can check that out. And also you can follow him on Facebook. He's got all kinds of really great stuff on there. And
I posted it in the chat room right now for everybody if you're interested. So
Nice.
Check it out.
Okay, we're going to be right back with Dr. Joe right after this break. I wanted to tell you about this really powerful and unique product called the Q Laser. Did you know there's over 2,500 peer-reviewed clinical research studies showing the benefits of low-level laser therapy on the body? We had Dr. Larry Lytle on episode 165 talking all about it. Dr. Lytle, what is the Q Laser?
The Q Laser is a light-delivering device, handheld, rechargeable, that is for lay people and professionals that works at the cell level of the body to restore energy. Since the body is all composed of cells and the cells are composed of atoms, it's good for any and everything in the body. It is especially beneficial for injuries. It will reduce swelling and inflammation before your eyes. Literally, you can have a sprained ankle and fly the laser, and within 30 minutes you can see that the swelling in the ankle has been reduced. Since all disease is inflammatory, you can assume that same process is working if you have some type of an intestinal problem. We have pictures of using a heat instrument to diagnose the intestinal inflammation. We can show that intestinal inflammation is pretty much gone within 3 minutes using the Q1000 laser. It's the number one tool in your medicine cabinet. I have a saying, never leave home without your laser. I have had 3 serious burns, and each time I had my laser with me, I applied the laser immediately after I had the burn. I never even blistered.
Kate and I don't want to be without ours. We've worked out a special deal with Dr. Lytle for all of our listeners. If you'd like to learn more about how the Q Laser can dramatically improve your health, go to extremehealthradio.com/laser. So a few years ago when I was working for this company, it was a really small company, and I had been wanting a Vitamix blender for years and years and years, but they're so expensive, and I just hadn't saved the money at that time to get one. And so as a Christmas bonus, they knew that I loved the Vitamix, so they got me a Vitamix, the 5000 blender. And that thing is so incredible. It was right at the beginning of my raw food journey, and I was using it about 3 times a day, really. Today, I still use it about twice a day to make blended smoothies and things like that. But the Vitamix blender is really, really great. And if you go to extremehealthradio.com/Vitamix, that will redirect you over to there, and then you'll be able to purchase that, and we'll get a commission for your order. And you'll also get free shipping too, so that'll be great for you if you're interested in saving about $25 on the shipping. And with the Vitamix, you can make sauces and dips and bread. You could make ice cream with it. I've done a lot of ice cream. You can just make the most incredible things. And it's my favorite because it's got a tamper on it. And you can put ice and frozen berries and avocado and some honey and things like that, and with no water at all. And you have that tamper, and you can make the most amazing ice creams with it. So the Vitamix is my favorite blender of choice, and if you're in the market to buy one, I would greatly encourage you to do so if you have the money for it. And if you do it through us, through extremehealthradio.com/Vitamix, I'll get a little commission for it, and you'll get free shipping. So it works out for you and for us too. So if you're in the market, please do it through us. That'd be really cool. And you're going to love this thing when you get it. You're going to fall in love with it. You'll never go back to a regular blender again. So check that out, extremehealthradio.com/Vitamix, and I hope you enjoy it.
100% listener supported. Extreme Health Radio. Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide. Don't forget to join our thriving community for health tips, inspiration, and show updates at extremehealthradio.com/Facebook.
We are having just such a great time with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and we actually missed him because he was at the I Can Do It conference recently.
I know.
And we weren't able to be there that day.
Attend.
Yeah, that would have been a lot of fun. But he travels all around and gives speaking engagements and lectures and does all kinds of really great interviews and writes books. Just an amazing guy. drjoedispenza.com is his website, and you can follow him on Facebook. And if you guys would like to follow us on Facebook, we would appreciate that, and you will be able to keep up to date with all of our shows that we do and past show archives, all kinds of great inspiration on our Facebook page as well. So follow both of us. A lot of fun, and we appreciate that. And so, Joe, before the break, we were talking a little bit about how to go about doing some of these things in terms of retraining and reprogramming your brain. Does it vary with the condition that you have, or does it vary with each type of person as to how much time they need to spend retraining their brain?
Well, there's a lot of questions there. I'll see if I can break this down. Well, let's first start off by talking about the anatomy of a belief, because I think when people understand really how beliefs are formed, then they can understand how they can change them. So most of our beliefs come from our past experiences. Now, experiences tend to etch patterns of neurons into specific networks. So you have an experience, and when you're in the midst of an experience, all of your five senses plug you into the external environment. And as you're gathering all this vital sensory data, as that information reaches your brain, jungles of neurons organize themselves into patterns. And the moment they string into place, the brain makes a chemical, and that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. Mm-hmm. So when we have experiences, the experience organizes networks into patterns in the brain, and then it produces chemicals that begin to signal the body. And when the body is receiving that chemical information from the environment, that's when it begins to signal new genes in new ways, or at least signal certain genes in certain ways. So then we tend to think and feel biologically within our past experiences in the brain and the body. And if you take a series of thoughts that are connected to a series of feelings, a thought and a feeling, a thought and a feeling, a thought and a feeling, that's called an attitude. And if how you think and how you feel creates a state of being, then attitudes are shortened states of being. You could have a good attitude in the morning and a bad attitude in the afternoon. Now, if you take an attitude, an attitude, and an attitude, and you begin to chunk attitudes together, you begin to form a belief. And beliefs are just thoughts you keep thinking over and over again until you hardwire them in your brain. Now, since all beliefs are created from past experiences, the very boundaries of our beliefs are how we feel. And when our beliefs are challenged, it typically doesn't feel right. So if how you think and how you feel creates a state of being, the redundancy of thinking and feeling and thinking for years on end conditions the body to subconsciously or unconsciously become the mind. In other words, your body all of a sudden memorizes a certain state that knows as well as your conscious mind. So then, if beliefs are extended states of being, and thinking and feeling begins to program subconscious patterns, then most beliefs are subconscious states of being. In other words, we have beliefs about spirituality, about money, about relationships, about love, that really may not even be true, but they're based on our past experiences, and we tend to stay stuck in those patterns. So if you string beliefs together, a series of beliefs together, you begin to form what's called perceptions. And perceptions have everything to do with the choices we make, the things we create in our life, the relationships we have, and the behaviors that we demonstrate. So most perceptions, then, are viewing present reality through the lens of the past. So we may be editing out part of reality because we can't see that what isn't neurologically and emotionally in our biology. So in order for us to change a belief or perception about ourselves or our lives, we have to make a decision with such firm intention that the amplitude of that decision carries a level of energy that's greater than the hardwired programs in the brain and the emotional addictions in the body. And that's when the body responds to a new mind. In other words, the choice that you make has to become such an internal experience that is so emotionally strong that it transcends your past experience that you had in your external environment. And when that occurs, that choice becomes an experience that you never forget. Why? Because experiences create emotions, and experiences create long-term memories. So the choice that you make becomes a long-term memory, and it begins to take your body out of the past and bring it into the present moment. And before the break, you were saying, well, how about the fire walker? Well, how can a person in the deep south of the United States move into a state of religious ecstasy and drink strychnine and have no biological effects? Or the snake charmer, who's moving in a state of absolute trust, allows a snake, a poisonous snake, to bite them and have no blood coagulation. Or the mother whose child is trapped under the car, and the mother lifts the car up and pulls the child out. She doesn't say, oh gosh, I ate carbohydrates today, or I haven't worked out in 2 weeks. She makes a decision with an amplitude of energy that transcends the body as the mind, transcends the conditions in the environment, and for that moment, she's outside of linear time. So in order for us to change a belief or perception, we have to move into a similar state of being.
So you talk about that in your book, and I've heard you talk also about, detaching from the body, so you're kind of getting into a state of no body and no mind, right?
Well, so the work that we do in our workshops around the world for people to really change their body, change their health, change their life, and as I said, we've been measuring this now for 2 years, and that is that when you live by the hormones of stress, and stress is living in survival, the cocktail of chemicals that are created in the body from stress wake the brain and body up for a period of time. And when you're being chased by a predator, or there's some threat around the corner, those survival chemicals cause you to put more attention or awareness on your body, more attention or awareness on the things in your external environment, and you become very preoccupied with time, the body, the environment, and time. And those chemicals cause us to function as materialists trying to define reality with our senses. And we feel more like matter and less like energy in that moment because those chemicals cause us to focus on the particle in quantum physics instead of on possibility. We're looking at objects and things because there's danger out there. And we studied this with so many people, and we have all the biological machinery to do this. There comes a moment when a person's truly present and they're truly paying attention to an idea or a thought. The moment they begin to make their inner picture more real than their outer picture, they become dissociative. They become nobody. They become no one. They become no thing. They become nowhere in no time. They become pure consciousness. And the moment that occurs, they dissociate from the idea that they're a mother or a father or an attorney or a doctor or a nurse or a salesperson. They forget that they're a particular gender. They forget that they're, drive a certain car. They forget about the pain in their back. They forget about their emotional state. They forget about where they have to be tomorrow, what they did yesterday. They're so completely in the present moment that they literally become thought alone. And if you are going to heal your body by thought alone, then you have to become thought alone. Now, when we become that pure level of consciousness and awareness, that's the moment we have dominion over the body. That's the moment we can change something in our life. And that's the moment we can create some future time. So in order for you to heal your body, you have to forget about your body. In order for you to change something in your life, you have to forget about your life. In order for you to create some new future time, you got to stop trying to predict the next moment. And we've seen this over and over again, that in that elegant state where the person's taking their attention off the particle and objects and things in the material world and beginning to put their attention on that 99.99% of possibility where the quantum model of reality exists. That's the moment they feel connected to something greater. That's the moment they trust in the future and an outcome. And that's the moment they're no longer trying to control an outcome or force an outcome because they're no longer matter trying to change matter. Their energy, their consciousness, their awareness, and that's the epiphenomenon of matter. So we've seen this over and over again.
It's so fascinating.
In your studies, I'm so curious, have you seen someone enter that state of not being in their body or pure consciousness and actually received a healing? I don't know how you measure that in like a one-time thing, or is this something that people train their brain and their body and their state to be able to go into so much so that they do it on a regular basis for the actual physical
healing? We've seen both,
healing?
actually.
Huh.
You know, we've seen both. We've seen, for example, it's a little bit. So the person, Kate, gets to the point where they're no body, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time. The moment they do that, the identity, the personality is out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's the moment we start to see a very high level of coherence in the brain. Now, coherence is orderliness. It's like a group of people playing the drums all at the same time really well. There's rhythm. That's what neurons love. Neurons love coherence. When you're living by the hormones of stress, different compartments of the brain don't really communicate well with each other, and if you were to measure those brainwave patterns, you would see an incoherent brainwave pattern. And when your brain's incoherent, you can bet that you're incoherent. So when we start to see a person move into those states, we start to measure that level of coherence. An amazing thing happens. It's like a symphony in the brain. The front of the brain starts talking to the back of the brain. The right side of the brain starts talking to the left side of the brain. Different compartments of the brain begin to synchronize, and what syncs together links together. And all of a sudden, the person starts feeling more whole. They start to feel more like themselves. Now they're in the perfect state to create in. And so then we've also seen when this occurs that we start to see significant amplitudes of energy taking place in people's brains. In other words, their amplitude of energy that their nervous system and their brain is processing is outside of convention. Sometimes 10 times the amount of normal, sometimes 20 times the amount of normal, sometimes thousands of times outside the realm of normal. Now, they cannot make their brain do that. It's happening to them. And when it's happening to them, the inner experience that they're having in that moment is greater than any past experience. In other words, they're having a full-on sensory experience between their ears without their senses. Wow. And their brain chemistry begins to change. And when that occurs, we've seen people right in our workshops be healed right in that moment, instantaneously. Now, that doesn't always happen for everybody. Some people have to create that level of coherence. In other words, if it's taken them 10 years to create the disease because they keep knocking on the genetic door over and over again, and finally they program the gene, it may take them a couple of years to turn the battleship around. And we've seen people, just like in placebo studies where you have to take the placebo for 6 or 8 or 12 weeks to remind you of that future in order to move into a state of being. Well, we don't need a sugar pill to move into a state of being. You can do the same thing without the pill. And so certain people who've been diagnosed with cancer or diagnosed with rare genetic disorders or Hashimoto's syndrome or whatever, MS, it's taking them a little bit of time to reprogram that gene. So we've seen it happen instantaneously when the amplitudes are really high in the brain. We've seen it take place over a period of time. And because the condition was more chronic and it took a longer time for it to manifest, it took a little time for them to turn it around. So I like the idea that it happens both ways, because I'm not interested in telling people that it's a one-time deal, that they have to get beyond themselves in order for the event to occur.
Fascinating stuff. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now, but before the break, I wanted to ask you, we've been using something very, very helpful to us lately. I'm curious if you've heard of it, called the sensory deprivation chamber. Have you heard of those?
Oh, certainly. I used to spend a lot of time in deprivation tanks.
We had a feeling you might.
Yeah, we had a feeling that you would know, and we'll talk about those after, at the very end of the show. But they've been helping a lot because they take away all 5 of your senses. It's a pretty fascinating thing. But we're going to take a little bit of a break right now, I can say that. And this is episode 341 with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and his website, again, is drjoedispenza.com if you want to go check that out and follow what he's got going on there. And we're going to be right back right after this break. The history of heat therapy dates back over 2,400 years, and it was Hippocrates who said, "Give me the power to produce fever, and I will cure all disease." This FDA-approved medical device called the Biomat is a mat that you can lay on, read on, sleep on, do yoga on, sit on, and it can be used on office chairs, massage tables, and the like to help the body heal itself. It's inlaid with 30 pounds of healing crystals using amethyst and a rare black tourmaline, producing negative ions in a healing electrical field. These healing crystals help to restore cellular health by replacing electrons to the atoms, as well as penetrating deep into the body by 4 to 6 inches. What can the biomat do for you? It'll improve your skin, burns as many calories as if you went jogging for 30 minutes. It improves the immune system by up to 40% or more, reduces stress and fatigue, removes toxins, lowers cholesterol, relieves pain, revitalizes cellular metabolism. It improves cell channels to deliver nutrients and oxygen to every one of your cells. It activates over 3,000 enzymes. And even a Harvard medical study showed cancer cells die at over 42 degrees Celsius. It reduces stress hormones by up to 78%. It allows your body to produce heat shock proteins, which increases endorphins, NK cells, T cells, and lymphocytes. It's very, very low EMF, and it's got a 17-layer technology. Dr. Mark Serkis is the director of the International Medical Veritas Association. Explain to us more about these biomats.
These biomats are these far infrared mattresses. You lay on them, or you sleep on them, or both. You do very heavy treatments during the day, and at night you sleep at just a nice comfortable temperature. These biomats are like these love machines, comfort machines, and healing machines, because what they do is they just radiate out light, far infrared light, and you can radiate yourself all night long while you're sleeping when you're not doing anything else. And what happens is this light penetrates the body and turns to heat. And the first thing that happens when you bring your core body temperature up 1 degree is your immune system strength increases by 40-50%. They feel when you lay down on them, you guys know, you have one. So it's like the feeling is so good. It's like being in the cuddling with a lover, your wife or husband. It's just warmth and comfort.
How are you using biomats for patients in your clinics?
The cancer treatment using heat is very aggressive, meaning during the day, you sandwich yourself in between two of them, turn it on to high heat, and bake the cancer. The cancer will die before you will. No, this is, you can go to England and spend $20,000 and use microwave a cancer out of existence. These biomats basically do the same thing. Radiation therapy for cancer is really a solid idea. Unfortunately, oncologists use the wrong radiation. They use radiation that kills you. This biomat uses radiation that can save your life and make your life more comfortable, keep you warm in the cold, and help take care of your kids and all, the list doesn't end.
Yeah, because isn't there some sort of temperature at which cancer cells will start dying?
Right, and it's below the temperature that human cells will die.
So you really like this biomat far infrared technology, don't you?
But it's strengthened me. Well, now the kids are addicted to it. They fight on who's going to sleep on it at night. And it not only changed my life, but it changed my medical practice and my books. This is a great machine for anybody who lives in the cold during the winter. Instead of heating a big house, you just heat yourself. Bottom line, it brings good feelings. Just lay on this biomat and it gives the strength back. I
can attest to that indeed. Kate and I love ours, and we think you will too. Learn more about these amazing biomats at extremehealthradio.com/biomat. Or you could check them out in our store as well. Again, that's extremehealthradio.com/biomat.
All free shows, all the time on Extreme Health Radio. Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide. Join our community today. Sign up to our email list and instantly get our free gift to you, along with loads of inspirational content and cutting-edge tips to help change your life at extremehealthradio.com/subscribe.
So what do you think, Katie? You interested? You fascinated like I am?
Yeah, it blows my mind. And I have to learn how to get out of my mind.
I know, right? How are you going to do that?
My mind's processing. This is very, very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, it's really, really fascinating.
I've heard a lot of Dr. Dispenza's talks, and I feel like it's so cool to be sitting here talking to him about this in real time.
Yeah, it's great.
It's more interesting every time I hear something.
Because, ultimately, in my opinion, if someone wants to get completely healthy, at some point they're going to have to deal with spiritual, emotional issues. Because the physical body can only go so far in terms of taking supplements and being healthy and doing exercise. And I think the real sort of foundation of true health and vitality and living a vibrant life comes down to the types of things that Dr. Dispenza is talking about here. So getting a handle on that and understanding why we are the way we are, why we are wired the way we are, it's just fascinating stuff. So Dr. Dispenza, I wanted to ask you, in terms of what it looks like, I know your entire book is about this and answers this question, but what does it look like for someone? Is it a series of daily practices they do, meditations they do, or how do they go about this change that we're talking about?
Okay, I'll answer that, Justin, as easily as I can, okay? We use the meditation model because the whole purpose of meditation is to get beyond the analytical mind. In other words, if you're sitting in a meditation and you're thinking and you're analyzing, you're driving your brain further away from the operating system where true change comes about. And again, we've studied enough brains in meditation, and I can tell you that if you're analyzing your life within the emotion that you're experiencing, like you have a problem and you're analyzing your problem within the emotional reaction to that problem, you'll make your brain worse. You'll drive your brain further out of balance, and your body as well. Okay. Because the emotion is a representation of the past. So by very definition, you're thinking in the past. You get people beyond their emotional states, and when they break free from the chains of those emotions, the memory without the emotional charge is called wisdom, and that's when they begin to finally see the answers to their problems. So we use the meditative model because it's a great way for people to begin to disconnect from the conditions in their external environment, to put their body away and no longer do anything to reaffirm their personality, and to forget about time. And if you're doing a meditation very well, you will forget that you have a body. You will forget that there's an environment out there, and you'll forget about time. And so that's my definition of change. My definition of change is when you get beyond your body, you get beyond your environment, and you transcend time. So the simple model that we use is very easy, and it says this: your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. And your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So the present personality who's listening to this call, this show, has created the present personal reality called their life. Which means then, if you want to create a new personal reality, a new life, and your personality is what creates it, then you have to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and change it. You have to begin to become aware of your unconscious habits and behaviors and modify them. And then you have to look at the emotions that you've memorized that keep you anchored to the past and decide if those emotions belong in your future. So I think that most people try to create a new personal reality as the same personality, and it doesn't work. We literally have to become someone else. So this concept in neuroscience called metacognition is what has become the hot word now in different circles of contemplative practices. It's called mindfulness. But really what mindfulness is your ability to observe how you're thinking, to notice how you're acting, and to pay attention to how you're feeling. And the moment you are observing them, you're no longer your personality. You're no longer a program. You're the consciousness observing the program, and that's when you begin to objectify your subjective self. In other words, if you see yourself standing up in front of an audience and giving a lecture and you watch the videotape, I guarantee you the next time you watch it, you'll self-correct. If you watch yourself dancing the salsa and you're out of control, I guarantee you the next time you dance, you'll bring it in a little bit. So the ability for us, because of the size of the frontal lobe, for us to observe who we're being means we could modify our states of mind and body to do a better job in life. Which also means then you get to decide what thoughts you do want to fire and wire in your brain, what behaviors you want to plan in your life. And the mere fact of reviewing your behaviors, mentally rehearsing your actions, beginning to speculate a new way of being, begins to change your brain biologically. In other words, the research on mental rehearsal shows that as you begin to plan your behaviors and you pay attention to what you're doing, if you do that enough times, your brain will look like it already had the experience. You've just upscaled the hardware in your brain. You've installed new circuitry. If you revisit that hardware pattern enough times, it'll become a software pattern because it'll become an automatic program. And if you can emotionally embrace a future event before it's made manifest, then your body, as the unconscious mind, begins to believe it's in that future in the present moment, and you begin to signal new genes in new ways. Now, the word meditation literally means, in Tibetan, to become familiar with. So as you become familiar with all the thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that keep you connected to the old self, and you're so conscious of them that you'll never go unconscious again, that is a process of meditation, to know thyself. And if you keep reviewing a future experience and who you want to be, and you begin to plan your behaviors and what choices you're going to make and what thoughts you do want to accept, believe, and surrender, and you begin to teach your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like, and you do that enough times, your biology will begin to change. Nerve cells that fire together wire together. It'll begin to become familiar to you. And if you can cultivate that emotional state up every day and you keep practicing it, it'll begin to become familiar to you. So the process of change that we use is unlearning and relearning, breaking the habit of the old self, reinventing a new self. What we say in neuroscience, pruning synaptic connections and sprouting new connections, unfiring and unwiring, refiring and rewiring, unmemorizing emotions that are stored in your body and then reconditioning the body to a new mind and to a new motion, downregulating or shutting off certain genes and signaling and turning on new genes, pulling your energy out of the past and putting your energy into a new future. And that model seems to work really well.
It's fascinating because it also does tie into the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton of epigenetics and all that. And so it sounds like you are, when you're doing this, you're almost like reaching into the future that's filled with many different possibilities of where your life can go and what kind of person you're going to be, and reaching down off the shelf and grabbing and making a particular future something that you actually want, instead of just sort of letting life take you by its whims and things like that.
Well, it's a choice of being a victim to your external reality. In other words, most people, their personal reality is creating their personality instead of their personality creating their personal reality. So if we're living reacting to everything in our life, then we're victims, and for the most part, we're living in survival. And living in survival, you're not going to want to create because it's not a time to create. And there's predators out there. It's time to run. It's time to fight. It's time to compete. It's time to, manipulate. It's time to try to survive in the jungle. So, but in the state of creation, then, I think it's an important element to create, because that's when you begin to see, once you begin to produce the effects of your mind at cause, you'll always pay attention to what you did and you'll do it again. Mm-hmm. And that's when people begin to feel empowered. And so to the materialist, they would say, well, why would I want to, give thanks for my wealth if I haven't experienced it yet? Well, you're going to wait for your wealth to come in order to feel abundant. That's the old Newtonian model of reality of cause and effect, waiting for something outside of you to change how you feel inside of you. And then when you feel differently inside of you and you pay attention to whoever or whatever caused it, that's cause and effect. But the quantum model of reality is about causing an effect. It's changing how you think and feel and doing it enough times so that your body and brain begin to change to look like the event has already occurred. Now, the new science in neuroplasticity and epigenetics says you can change your brain and body by just thought alone. So if there's physical evidence in your brain that shows that the experience looks like it already happened, and you're emotionally embracing that future and upregulating new genes in new ways, so your body is beginning to change, in preparation for the future event, this is where you get to relax, because the event is going to find you, and it's going to come in a way that you least expect. And it has to come in a way that we least expect, because if we can expect it, it's nothing new. It has to rock our world. It has to catch us off guard. And it has to leave no doubt that what we did inside of us produced some result outside of us. And when we can correlate the changes we made inside of us with the effects that we produced outside of us, we'll always pay attention to what we did, and we'll do it again.
So it becomes repeatable. So it almost seems as if this is what they talk about in The Secret or in that film there, where they talk about creating your own reality. But this is bringing it much, much deeper, because you're saying that when you do that, your body actually changes, and then it vibrates at a different frequency, perhaps, and that's what's bringing in the resonant frequency of what your body is now vibrating at.
Well, I mean, look, we talked about it extensively in What the Bleep, and then The Secret came out, and this similar model was created, and it's the same. I mean, when you are more energy and less matter, you're more in a creative state, and when you have a vibrational match with your electromagnetic signature that matches a potential in the quantum field electromagnetically, your body will be drawn to the event. But as an example, if you want wealth and you feel lack, you'll never have wealth. I mean, only gold creates gold. Lead doesn't create gold. So teaching people then, if you want abundance, then you have to teach your body emotionally what freedom and abundance feels like. If you want a healing, you can't wait for your healing to feel wholeness. You have to feel wholeness before the healing occurs. If you want a successful life, you have to feel empowered before the success comes. If you want a new relationship, you can't wait for the relationship to come to be happy and in love with life. You got to be happy and in love with life before the relationship shows up. So teaching people how to do that. And I use science as the contemporary language of mysticism. I think science really unifies community, and I think that when you start talking about tradition or culture or religion, you divide an audience, but science unifies. So I use science as the language of mysticism, and I really think that this is a time in history where people just don't want to know. They want to know how. Mm-hmm. And that's why when we do our workshops, you're going to come and you're going to work, and you're going to get beyond yourself, because after 1,000 brain scans, I can tell you that you and I are at our best when we get beyond ourselves.
That's so amazing.
It sounds like a lot of work, but it sounds like the most rewarding thing you could ever do.
It does. It does. So, Dr. Dispenza, in wrapping up, do you do these workshops around the country, and you travel around and do these?
Oh, yeah, we do quite a bit. We're just in a lot of major cities. I'll be leaving for Kuwait next week, and then I'll be doing one in Munich, and then one in Lisbon, and then one in Costa Rica. We do them quite a bit in the United States. We're done with our U.S. tour for the year, but we were in Denver, we were in Phoenix, we were in Los Angeles, we were in Austin, we were in Miami, we were in New York. We've been we've been all over. Yeah.
That is so cool. And are you working on any new books, any new material, or anything coming out soon?
Well, I just finished Placebo, and but because we've gotten so many abnormal, common people doing the uncommon scans and information, I'm tempted to write another book. I just had dinner with the director, CEO of Hay House, and he was asking me, "You got another book in you? Is there another one in there?" And I started thinking about all the abnormal stuff that really is super cool. So I may sit down in a few months and gather some thoughts here.
That's so cool. And I appreciate your work, because I love the fact that you bring the science to everything. I don't know why. Maybe I have a very analytical mind, but I love all of that and how you bring that to the table too. I think that's just awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joe, for being on the show. We really appreciate your time and your energy and sharing your work with our audience. I'm sure they already know who you are, but we appreciate it so much.
Thank you, guys. You guys are great.
Thank you. Well, hold on the line really quickly, Joe, but we are going to close out our live show. We thank everybody for being on the live show. We will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. with our chiropractor, Dr. John Bergman.
He'll be in the studio.
He'll be in the studio, so make sure to join us on there at extremehealthradio.com/live at 11 a.m. Pacific time.
And jump in the chat room to ask all your questions, because there's always a lot for Mr. Bergman.
It's going to be a great show. So I want to thank all of you guys for being on this particular call. This is episode 341, and we will catch you on the next episode.
All right, guys, have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, well, that was quite a show with Dr. Joe Dispenza, wasn't it, Kate?
It's so cool having
Baby Kate.
people chill out with us on the phone that I've listened to for years.
I know, right? We got a lot to talk about, don't we?
We got a lot to talk about.
Well, let's break this down, because I've got quite a few things that I'd like to share and talk about and concerning what he did or what he said. So we're going to run a little ad. We're going to be right back right after this break. And when we come back, we're going to talk all about this show.
Yes, let's.
Okay, here we go. I have to say, I have been absolutely loving this product by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar called Good Morning, Good Evening Qigong. If you want to listen to the interview we did with Tristan, you can go to extremehealthradio.com/127. And Qigong is a great way to de-stress the body. And as you know, there's a huge component to disease caused by stress. And stress is a huge factor in how we live our lives and the amount of energy we have and the amount of vitality we have. And so, Dr. Shade, what do you think about Qigong?
People come to me and they're really sick and they got this blown out neurological system and all this toxicity. And I tell them, you need to do Qigong, Tai Chi. You need to do these things that settle down and restore your neurology, because it puts together all the parts. It puts you back into that state where you can start to detoxify. And so I highly, highly recommend all that.
And what about you, Kit Campbell? What do you think about Qigong? Do you like it as well?
Qigong is amazing. And the reason that I believe it to be amazing is everything here is energy. That is a scientific fact, if there ever is one. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually drawing energy into your body. Your intention, whatever your intention is behind any action, will determine the level of energy, type of energy that you absorb into your body. So your intention behind is very important, just like thought. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually bringing energy in and you're bringing out the stuff that might be a bit stale. With Tai Chi, it's totally different. The energy runs underneath the skin because it's more of a martial. This is the Chinese understanding, by the way. It's more of a martial art. So Qigong is very, very good for bringing that energy into the body, and just fantastic.
If you're interested in picking up this Qigong course by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar, go to extremehealthradio.com/Qigong. That's QIGONG. And you can learn more about it. There's a great video on that page, and you can learn more about it on that page. And I highly, highly recommend this product. I love it myself, so go ahead and check that out. extremehealthradio.com/Qigong.
All free shows, all the time, on Extreme Health Radio. Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide. Join our community today. Sign up to our email list and instantly get our free gift to you, along with loads of inspirational content and cutting-edge tips to help change your life at extremehealthradio.com/subscribe.
I can find the unmute button there. Barely found it, but I just found it.
Somehow you mysteriously always seem to find it, though, when when I'm talking.
What, I mute you? They need to have those for people in real life. Just turn people off.
That would be. Could we get Dr. Dispenza to work on that?
That would be awesome.
That'd be his next project.
Yeah, we got a whole construction.
A live mute button.
The live mute button. We have a whole construction crew right next to our house here, and they're just going on one and on with us. Can you imagine how fun that would be just to be able to turn mute?
Well, I'm laughing because that's silly cell phone I have, which I cannot wait to ditch after the new year, hopefully, when I get out of the salon altogether. But It has this app where you can actually be in a bar or a restaurant that has a TV on, and you can change the channel from where you're sitting.
Really?
It's the creepiest but coolest thing, and I'm thinking I can picture an app like that on people's phones where you could point it at somebody and just silence them.
Prevent them from talking.
Trash truck down the street, silent.
Oh my gosh, that would be pretty funny.
I think we need to work on that.
Why
let Dr. Dispenza do it? We should come up with that.
An app for that. That's hilarious.
Oh man, good
Gosh,
times.
he was a pretty interesting guy, wasn't he? Dr.
To say
Joe
the
Dispenza.
least. Yeah. I wonder if he, you know what, I wanted to ask him, but I know A, we were short on time, and B, it's just too big of a question, but I wonder if he lives from that place of acting as if, like if he's more in that brain place, you know,
You mean all the time?
the non-existent brain or the higher consciousness.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I know you have to live life and be a human and go to the grocery store and sit in traffic, and you are going to react
Yeah.
at some point, but I wonder if like 90% knowing what he knows, 90% of his day now is in and out of his head. You know what I mean?
If he lives in a place where he's constantly in his head, you mean like judging things and reacting?
In his head, but out of his head. Like so in his head that he's in that place, you know, where he can train. I'm sure he can. I mean, obviously, he teaches the workshops for people to be able to get to that place. So
yeah,
I'm just curious if he can live from that place of higher consciousness throughout the day.
Well, I'm sure
more than most.
I'm sure he does a pretty good job. I mean, we're all human, and I'm sure he reacts to things in poor ways, and just like the rest of us. But I'm sure he does. It seems like he would do a pretty good job of it, considering this is his work. But I don't know. Sometimes you have people that don't practice what they preach too. But I don't know if he would be one of them.
He doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I've heard so many of his interviews over the last year and a half probably, but I don't remember if he's ever talked about what got him into this. Like, why was he so fascinated in the way that the brain works?
Yeah, I'm
curious his background.
I don't know. I'm very curious too. I wanted to ask him, but I wanted to also just keep it as empowering and as much of the meat of his work as possible, because I knew that he only had an hour, like he had to finish right at the top of the hour, so we wanted to make sure that he got out. But
right.
I'm with you. I'm curious how people get into this type of work, and
yeah, I was really, really interested in that.
The story.
You think if you had struggled with sort of mental diseases, whether it be anxiety, depression, suicidal tendencies, or even something like schizophrenia, I mean, you think that if you had a family history of it, or if you saw yourself slowly slipping into that place, you'd be fascinated by the brain and how to trick it and how to make it work for you and with you, not against you.
Right.
But maybe some people just have this overwhelming desire to scientifically prove things. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? Like I told him at the end of the show, I was really I like how he brings the science to it, because I mean, he's essentially what he's trying to do is marry this whole hippie woo-woo kind of
out there
kind of
new agey
vibe, with the Western science analytical mind, and so.
You know who else does a really good job of that too? Is Lissa Rankin.
Oh, does she?
Her book is amazing like that too.
Yeah, that's right, because she's a real kind of hardcore researcher.
Yes, but very much and very doctor, came from the typical background of a medical doctor, but adds the spiritual in, marries it in just the way that I think Joe Dispenza too. I'm sure they have a lot in common, and they're both Hay House authors. So,
how about that story with that guy that he opens the book up with, where the guy was told he had cancer and he didn't, and he died. I mean, what is that? I'm sure that happens a lot.
Well, check this out too. This is really interesting. I had an appointment this morning at the crack of dawn, about 45 minutes away, which we'll talk about on our next free for all. But
which will be actually another week from now.
That's right. But I'll blog about it tonight.
Yes.
But I was driving down. I was listening. I was gearing up for this talk, so I wanted to just hear his latest Hay House 2014 World Summit interview. Real
quick, I just want to let everybody know about both of our audio blogs.
Oh, right.
And so we're doing audio blogs. So Kate's doing a 365-day feel-good project where she's on a mission to feel better, which is what we're all trying to do. But we're turning our articles into audio blogs. So we're actually reading and talking about them. So there's a link on the right-hand side of our site that says listen to our audio blog. So I just want to let people know about that.
Great.
So anyway, I didn't.
Yeah, no, it was interesting because you mentioned about the guy with the example that Dr. Dispenza gave this morning at the beginning of his book about the guy who died, didn't even have the liver cancer. But he was giving an example, too, on this last Hay House Summit that he was participatory in.
Look at you.
Is that a word?
Participating.
That he was a
participating.
A participant in.
He was a participant.
There you go. Man, I just lost my brain needs to be rewired. But he was telling the story of this guy who was dealing with depression, I believe, and some things like that, and had been taking a placebo study, like a triple blind, I believe he said.
Oh, yeah,
study.
I remember that.
and had a fight with his girlfriend. Do you remember this?
Yeah, well, I
had
forget.
a fight with his girlfriend and thought, I'm going to take the whole bunch of those pills to overcome this this horrible feeling I'm having of this anxiety and depression over this situation.
So he's trying to kill himself, right?
I don't know. I don't think he was. I think he was trying to honestly take as many so he could numb the pain and feel like it was helping him get out of that space in his head that was just a miserable place.
So it was a triple blind, meaning he didn't know he had a placebo, right?
Right. He didn't know he had it. The doctors didn't know he had it and all this stuff. So he takes all these things and then he immediately starts freaking out and feeling like he's going into all these overdose symptoms, right?
Right.
So he goes to the hospital and they basically come back and run every test in the book, it sounded like, and say, you are on a placebo. And they have to tell him, like, there wasn't anything in all those pills you just took. It's a placebo. And immediately his just the calmness overcame him and he went right back into that state of like, what felt like a heart attack and he thought he was going into the state of his whole body shutting down. Immediately it flipped the switch and brought him back into the complete relaxation of not having an overdose.
Isn't that strange?
So, my gosh. I'm sure, I can't wait to read his book because I'm sure it's so full of story after research after study. There is something really fascinating going on, isn't it?
What is, it's so, like I said in the beginning of the show, it's just, to me, it blows my mind that the average person out there knows what the placebo is. They've heard about it. And so do doctors. Everybody knows what a placebo is, but yet nobody really talks about it. No one thinks it's strange. And so I'm so glad that a guy like Dr. Dispenza comes along, says, hey, you know what? I'm going to take this one little subject that no one really wants to talk about, and I'm just going to pick this apart, and I'm going to do all the research and figure out what the heck is going on with this placebo thing and write an entire book on it, and then talk about how we're able to change the course and direction of our life based on how you believe and perceive and how you feel about the world, which is completely strange. But yeah, I'm so glad there's people out there like him doing this kind of work.
Aren't you?
Yeah, because it's so strange.
I wonder if women or men are more likely to. Men have the very analytical brains for the most part, and you think that you guys would want to attend a workshop, but then when you hear him talking today, it's just as emotional and spiritual as anything else. It goes hand in hand, so you think all these women would. I'm sure men and women alike are just like flocking to him, and it's clear he's going all over the world and teaching people this. So I'm just curious if there tends to be more of a
men versus women. Yeah, I would imagine women would be inherently drawn to his work, and I think that he sort of wins over men in the sense that he's bringing the science, because I know that's what interests me. It's funny, I'm very analytical, and I don't like to believe the woo-woo stuff, but I find myself believing it, but sometimes I don't like to believe it just because I want more science. I want to look at like what's really happening. Is this really fixing anything or whatever? And so when, during the show, a lot of people talk about that, Dr. Masaru Emoto. Do you know about him?
I do.
Yeah. The messages in water. Well, he recently passed away. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah. He was,
is he quite old?
Yeah, he was. And he was in, I think, Japan, but he recently passed away, but he did apparently some work that shows that we're able to change the crystalline structure of water through our thoughts. And a lot of people say that, that was kind of like fabricated, and some people say that wasn't true. But it's interesting though, because if it were true that we could do that, how much easier would it be to rewire and change our own biology? Because if you're doing it with a cup of water, you're doing it with an object that's across from you, that's supposedly separate from you. But if you take, for example, that his work is true, Dr. Emoto, then it seems like it would be much easier to do the types of things that Dr. Dispenza is talking about, because this is actually your own body here. Mm-hmm. So
I get that, yeah.
But how does one go about changing and not reacting to things? And I think that's part of his work, is like when you have someone that just all they do is they push your buttons, there's people like that,
Well, I need as much help as anyone out there, because I have not even come close to mastering how you
don't react
doing that.
Because it's funny, like he said, if you react, you're not in a creative place. You're not in a place of creation, because you're reacting whatever vibration that the other person is putting towards you. You're reacting what they put out based on your personality. So if they're putting out anger, then you're going to react that anger instead of respond to it, you know, which is different. But I don't know. So much here, isn't there?
There's so much here.
Yeah.
All I know is that when I kind of acted as if I think I was doing this, like he was talking about the people who travel to go see John of God, there's just something so powerful in the expectation of what they're doing that alone might be the placebo working.
Yeah.
And I had that happen with our trip to see our dentist, Dr. Stuart Nunley, when we went to Texas last spring.
Oh, yeah. Tell people who haven't heard that.
Yeah, it's just the short version is that I'd been having, you know, some kind of mystery symptoms and things like that for a long time, and a lot of seemingly unrelated things really keeping me down health-wise, and digestion and things. But I also had these growths on my hands, on my knuckles and things. Very strange. And anyway, I'd been to regular dermatologists and conventional people, and no one knew what they were. No one knew how to treat them. The freezing and burning, they just came right back. So it had been like 6 years that they were just slowly, it looks like blisters all over my hands.
And they really, I don't know if you guys have ever had, I mean, I don't think these things were warts, but if you ever had warts, it's kind of similar where you look at them and you don't want to like put your hand in front of someone else or sign a receipt.
They're embarrassing. They mentally screw with you.
Yeah, they really do.
They really do. They make you feel like you're like this, not gross person, but you're just not whole and there's something wrong with you and you don't, you know, it's just kind of like, ooh. So every time I'd look at these, I mean, I had 6 years of just really being bummed out about that. So what happened is before I got on the plane to go get my root canal tooth removed surgically from Dr. Nunley in Texas, I had prayed the night before that God would give me what I needed to get through the airplane ride because my pancreas and liver areas had been hurting so badly, and just get me through that flight because I didn't want to be mid-flight and have a problem up there with like an attack of some sort.
And by the way, for those that don't know, you have real bad, or you used to have real bad, I should say your body used to have really bad reactions when you didn't sleep. You wake up and have that weird kind of stomach from not sleeping, and you
traveling.
You put that on top of, you know, being tired and on a plane.
And nerves because I don't like to fly.
Yep.
Haven't liked to fly in the past, I should say.
Yeah. So what happened?
Yeah. So I woke up that morning, and for the first time in probably 18 months to 2 years, I didn't have any pain in my body at all.
On that flight?
Oh, well, I thought it happened through the flight. And then I was thanking God the whole time, and I just like, get me on the ground. The minute we got on the ground, I still felt great. Throughout the whole day, I felt great. I thought this is a fluke thing. Next day I woke up, I felt great. I got my surgery, I felt great. I mean, I continued to feel great until a couple months ago, where I've had a few issues kind of flare back up, and I think they're more dietary and I'm dealing with them. But it was as if the healing had happened, the trust in the process that was going to come to me. From the actual extraction. From the extraction of the tooth had already been done in advance. It was that acting as if and trusting as if and just being really involved and in believing that the process was going to help me. And those growths on my hand were the proof of it, because within 2 weeks of getting that dental work done and that trip to Texas upon coming home, I mean, they were almost completely sunken and gone when they had been on my hands like that for 6 years. So.
And you have before and after pictures too.
Sure do.
Yeah, incredible, isn't it?
It was and to me, when he was talking today about when people start to see what this looks like in their own life, there's no going back. I mean, once you see the power, I mean, I'll blog actually about tonight with my blood work that came back this week. And when you see that your body can heal itself, I think that's what we are all looking for. We're all looking for our own proof in the pudding. We're all looking to be that proof, you know? And it's out there if you're patient enough, if you have enough kindness toward yourself, if you're willing to do the work. It is hard ass work. It is. Yeah, it's hard. Is. It's really, really hard work.
It is.
But seeing my blood work come back this week and it having been lowered was amazing. So,
yeah, you know, it's almost like with your blood work, it's almost like what he talks about, you know, acting as if it's going to be fine, and acting, living in a state of complete wholeness and abundance and health and vitality, and knowing that no doctor, no number can ever tell you that you're healthy or not. No number. A number is just some sort of representation of a physical, perhaps, ailment that may or may not even be there at the time that the doctor tells you about it. And so true health and true vitality and abundance it only comes from us.
Yeah.
And a doctor, some number can never tell us. All it can tell us is, okay, so if you're, I liken it to being in a sailboat, and if you're taking a sailboat from California to Hawaii and you start seeing Alaska, you're a little bit, you start seeing polar bears, you're going in the wrong direction.
You better bring a coat.
Yeah, you bring. So all a number is just that polar bear is just saying, you know what? Okay, I'm going to go in a slightly wrong direction, but I'm healthy, I'm whole. It doesn't mean that you're not alive when you're in that sailboat. It doesn't mean that you're dying when you're on the sailboat. It just means you're going the wrong direction. So when you're getting some number from some doctor, it just makes sense that, hey, like,
get back between get back into the right current and go the right way.
You know what I liked about a lot of his work? It's, I think it's really important for people to really take a unified stand as far as what they're going to be doing in their life and what kind of life they want to live. Because I feel like so many people, I don't know if you see this, I see it every single day. Excuse me, that people they react to everything, and everything sort of switches on and turns and causes them to just react to things. This happens to me. And instead of making a choice and making a defined, clear choice about this is who I am, this is where I'm going to go, and doing things every single day that get you to that purpose, it's like, living the future reality now, but you're doing it in baby steps. So you already feel like what it's going to be like to live, to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not just being tossed around and back and forth by drama and people's reactions and TV and Ebola and fear and scare and vaccinations and all this stuff. Ultimately, all that stuff is designed to control you and keep you fearful and keep you afraid. And so, I feel like we're taught that from such an early age that if you're able to get into the work that Dr. Dispenza is doing, other people like him, Dr. Greg Braden, tons of people do, a lot of great work like Dr. Dispenza, but whoever you resonate with, and you start really taking an active approach to where you're going in life.
Yeah.
Instead of just taking the first best opportunity. It's, you see that all the time.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, I was one of those people up until the last 3 years.
Because it's finally you're saying, what do I want to do? What kind of person do I want to be? Who do I want to affect? How do I want to live my life? It's so different than just taking, I got this opportunity. I'm really good at doing this, and this opportunity pays really well.
Right. What do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What do you want to do, and what kind of person are you going to be?
You know who's really good about speaking about that whole subject is Mike Dooley from Hay House.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, is he good.
Tut.com.
What? Tut?
Tut.
That's TUT.com.
Not KingTut.com.
Nope.
That's different. Yeah, TUT.com.
But he speaks so much of that and the stuff that we've heard him talk about. It's like, what do you want to do? Don't waste all your time like doing the stuff that you think you should be or that you've done.
Or what other people say you should do.
I know.
Or that what you're good at.
Or what you're good at. I'm so sick of hearing that personally with the hairstyling thing. Every time I've actually tried to quit 4 times in the past where I've told the actual owner of the salon, like, I'm just done,
Really?
Yeah, I've actually tried to quit. It's kind of like that funny Friends episode when Chandler tries to quit the gym and they won't let him. And everyone's response has been to me, but you're so good at it. I'm like, oh, and it flips a switch. And I'm like, yep, they're right. This is what I have to do. I'm good at it. I make money doing this because I'm good at it. And you start to go down that road of like, oh, the economy's so bad. I need to be thankful I have something that I'm good at, that people pay me to do.
I should be satisfied with where I am.
But the reality is the chemicals are killing me. I mean, they are not adding to my health by any stretch of the means.
Yeah.
And I'm tired and I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I don't enjoy my interaction with those people anymore. It's been 15 years and that's not what I want to do anymore.
Yeah, it's not.
And it's scary as all get out. I mean, it's scary to have to make a choice to change something. And but that goes back to what Joe Dispenza was saying today. I mean, when you have a belief system set in place and you have something that comes in that changes that or questions it and you start to feel uncomfortable, it's so easy to want to stay in that place because it's scary and you feel like you're not doing something right.
It's the responsible thing. Yeah, I know. It's so different than what you're used to, what you've been brought up with.
Whole paradigm shift.
It goes probably against what your parents and family and friends think about what it means to be responsible and all that. And so doing something that you want to do. I mean, we only have one life, on Earth here right now. So, why are we going to waste time doing things that we don't want to do, doing crappy jobs we don't want, don't resonate with or don't serve us or that make us sick, or be with people that are just belittling, toxic. Yeah. I mean, if we only have one life, it's time to change, time to start doing something that you want to do and stop being such a giver and stop being so dependent upon people making you feel like it's your role and your responsibility to always give, and you never give to yourself. And so ultimately what that happens is, that turns into a rapid aging process, a disease process, and ultimately not living the kind of life that you want to live and that you should be living.
I think most people are living as an observer. They're on the sidelines of their own life. And they're not even playing. They think they're playing, but they're not.
Yeah.
And that's probably the most sad state for me to see people in. But it is time to man up and jump in. Man up, brother.
Man up, brother.
Sister.
So yeah, we thank all of you guys for being on the show today. It was a pretty cool show, huh?
So fun.
Yeah, if you guys like the show, pass it on to your friends. Let your friends know about this show. This is extremehealthradio.com/341. And we have our audio blogs, and we are broadcasting live 2 days a week on Monday and Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Tomorrow is a special show once again at 11 a.m. Pacific with Dr. John Bergman in the studio. So that's going to be really great. And if you guys could do us a favor, we'd greatly appreciate this. If you could support us in these ways, if you could remember to go over to extremehealthradio.com/Amazon and bookmark that link in your browser and use that link every time you make a purchase on Amazon. We'd greatly appreciate that. Because if you're already going to make purchases on Amazon anyway, this would be a great way to help support us, keep the show free for everyone else that listens to the thousands of other people that listen, so they don't have to pay for it. And it also supports us, and nothing changes for you. So that's also a great thing. And also, if you guys could, it really, really, really means a lot to us if you could go over to iTunes and put in Extreme Health Radio, all one word, into the search bar, and leave us a rating and review. We'd greatly
Please, guys, that is so helpful. We live off of those reviews. I mean, it means the world, and we understand not everybody has money they can donate or even buy things off of Amazon, but those reviews are priceless to us. I mean, we appreciate all those other things because it does pay our bills, but the reviews just allow it to be able to get out into the hands of other people, which in turn are able to help us keep the lights on.
Yes.
It is just priceless, and we really, really, really would ask you guys to go over and do that and help us out.
Yeah.
We highly, highly appreciate it.
Because apparently when you leave a rating and review and you subscribe on iTunes, it helps. I think it helps to bring our show to the top of the of the search or the lists or whatever. So that is just an invaluable way. And I know that when you're listening to these types of shows, because I do this all the time, I listen to the host ask for something like this, and I think, I'll do it, when I get home. And there's other people that will do that. But if you could really make a point to remember, because I know a lot of people listen to our shows while they're out and driving or doing errands or something like that. If you can remember when you get back to your car, your iPad or whatever, to do that, that would be really grateful. And if you would like to support us on a financial level, we do accept donations. There's a place to do that on the right-hand side of our website. And so we greatly, greatly appreciate that. And then also, if you are interested in looking at our store, we've got all kinds of great products. We just added Ceramcore to our host of products that we stand behind now.
Is that how you say it?
Ceramcore, I think,
okay.
yeah. Extrema, and it's a chemical-free, toxic-free, heavy metal-free, lead-free, completely organic and natural cookware. So they have skillets and saucepans and all that kind of stuff. So
I know what I want for Christmas.
I know. So if you go over to our store, you can check those out along with a bunch of other different things that we talked about on today's show, like the Qigong course and all that. So we appreciate all that so much, and we appreciate you for listening. And if you want to do those two free things, share us on or leave us a review on iTunes, and then share us on Facebook too. Be greatly appreciated. That's about it, right?
So fun. Yep, that's it.
All right, that's a wrap.
That is a wrap.
That's a wrap. All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening.
And we will catch you guys and gals on the next episode.
Hey, everybody, this is Josie, Justin's mum. Don't tell him, but I know he would absolutely be really happy if you would sign up to his free weekly newsletter. And don't forget to share this with all your friends. This is the buzzing bumblebee signing off.
So good.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for listening to this episode.
It's time to go for now, but our mission does not end with this show.
Justin and Kate will be back with another interview packed full of ideas, discoveries, and unique ways to regain your health.
Head on over to extremehealthradio.com/subscribe and instantly download our free gift too that contains cutting-edge strategies to start making healthy lifestyle changes today.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information